I never planned to tell anyone this. Honestly, I'm still not sure if I should. But after everything that happened, after what I found, and what I almost lost, I need to get this off my chest. A few months ago, I found something in the mountains that shouldn't have been there. Something ancient, something worth more than everything I've ever owned. Something people would kill for. And the worst part, I almost made the mistake of telling the wrong person. I'm not an adventurer, not a climber, not a hiker, not one of those people who disappear into the wilderness with a backpack and a GoPro. I'm just a guy who likes walking alone when life feels too heavy. And that day, life was heavy. I had just quit my job. My girlfriend had just left. Nothing was working out, so I drove into the mountains, to a trail I barely knew. No plan, no goal, just silence. I walked for hours, thinking about everything and nothing. The deeper I went, the fewer people I saw. By afternoon, I realized I hadn't heard a human voice in hours. It was strangely peaceful, until I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. A part of the rock wall looked wrong, like it had collapsed recently. Fresh cracks, loose stones, a dark gap behind the rubble. A gap big enough for a person to squeeze through. I don't know why I did it. Curiosity, emotional exhaustion, stupidity, probably a mix of everything. But I slipped inside that gap, with my phone flashlight in hand. And that was the moment. My life split into before and after. Inside, the air was colder, still, almost untouched. The passage widened as I moved forward, my footsteps echoing softly. It didn't feel like a natural cave. The walls were too smooth in some places, too worn in others, as if shaped by human hands. A long, long time ago, my heartbeat got louder, the deeper I went. Then I saw something shine, at the edge of my flashlight. Just a spark, just a reflection. I walked closer, and froze. There, half buried in dust, was a metal box, old, iron, decorated with patterns. That didn't look modern at all. My hands shook as I knelt beside it. The lid was partially cracked open, as if someone had tried, but failed, to force it shut centuries ago. I lifted it gently. Inside, God, I still remember how my breath caught. Inside were jewels, actual jewels, not costume jewelry, not crystals, real gemstones, emeralds, rubies, pearls, all set in ancient golden frames, covered with dust and time. Necklaces, bracelets, a crown-like band, and rings that looked like they belonged to royalty. I didn't touch anything at first. I just stared. For a long, long time, my brain couldn't process it. Then came the panic. What the hell is this? Who left it here? How long has it been here? Am I allowed to take it? Is this some kind of trap? My mind spiraled, and yet couldn't walk away, not without knowing more. I took out my phone and snapped pictures. Every angle, every detail. The gold wasn't shiny. It had that deep, aged patina you can't fake easily. The gemstones were irregular, cut in old styles, not machine perfect. Some pieces were wrapped in what looked like ancient fabric, rotted and brittle. One necklace had a charm, with symbols I'd never seen in my life. This wasn't modern. This wasn't buried by tourists or miners. This was old, centuries old. My hands were sweaty. My heart felt too big in my chest. And then, I made the second mistake of the day. I reached inside and lifted one ring. It was surprisingly heavy, cold, detailed. A large ruby, set in thick gold, with carvings around the band. The kind of thing you see in museums and think, wow, imagine finding something like that. Well, imagine no more. I had it in my hand, and that terrified me. I should have left the box where it was. I should have walked out and called someone official. But when you're alone in a cave, holding a piece of history, worth more than your yearly salary times 100, logic disappears. I took one necklace, one ring, one bracelet. Not stealing, I told myself. Documenting. I'd show someone expert, then decide what to do. I closed the box and backed away slowly. One last photo, one last glance. Then I crawled out of the gap, heart racing, sweat freezing on my skin. Outside, the sun was low. I walked back to my car, in a daze. I didn't know then that someone had followed me, and that showing the wrong person would nearly cost me everything. When I got home that evening, I put the 3 items on my kitchen table: the ruby ring, the gold bracelet with emeralds, the necklace wrapped in ancient fabric. And I just stared at them. They didn't look fake. They didn't feel fake. And deep down, I already knew the truth. This was real. Too real. I needed someone who could confirm it without calling the police or starting some formal investigation before I understood what I had. So I reached out to the one person I thought I could trust, Evan. He worked at a local antique shop. We'd known each other for years. We weren't best friends, but we'd grab beers sometimes. He knew history, coins, jewelry, stuff I never cared about until now. I sent him a message. Found something weird while hiking. Need your opinion. Can I bring it by tomorrow? He replied instantly. Sure. Come early, before customers show up. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound outside my apartment made me look at the door. I didn't know why, just a gut feeling that these things weren't meant to be touched. Chapter 6 Reakcja Jaka ja nie czkuwaf. The next morning, I wrapped the items carefully and headed to Evan's shop. When I unwrapped them on his counter, his face changed instantly. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't excited. He looked scared. He picked up the ring first, holding it to the light. Where did you get this? His voice was too controlled. I found it while hiking, I said. In a cave. He didn't blink. What cave? Does it matter? I asked. He set the ring down. Yes, it matters. He studied the bracelet next, then the necklace. Jesus, he whispered. This is ancient. Like how ancient? I asked quietly. He leaned in close. Middle Ages, maybe older. You have no idea what you're holding. I swallowed. So they're valuable? He laughed nervously. Valuable? This necklace alone could be worth $500,000 if authenticated. And the ring, God knows what the ring is. My stomach flipped. $500,000 for the necklace alone. Evan looked at me intensely. You didn't tell anyone else, right? No, I said. He nodded slowly. Good. Listen carefully. You need to bring the rest of the items here. My blood went cold. What rest? He smirked. You think I can't tell? Pieces like these belong to a set. This came from a hoard. Where is the rest of it? He wasn't asking. He was demanding. Something in his tone made every instinct in me scream. I lied. That's all there was. Evan didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes. He leaned forward slowly. Look, a find like this? It's illegal to keep. You'll get in trouble if anyone finds out. He paused. But I can help you. I know buyers. Discreet ones. The way he said buyers made my skin crawl. He looked at the door, then back at me. Bring me whatever else you found. We can split it. I told you, I repeated. There's nothing else. He didn't blink. Sure, he said lightly. Of course. But his jaw was tight, his eyes sharp. I wrapped the items quickly and left his shop. My hands shook the entire walk home. That night, as I tried to sleep, I heard footsteps in the hallway of my building. Slow, heavy, deliberate. My heart hammered. Someone stopped, right outside my door. Then, a quiet scrape, like fingers sliding along the wood. I didn't breathe, didn't move, didn't dare look through the peephole. After a long minute, the steps continued, down the hall, and disappeared. I stayed awake until sunrise. By morning, I convinced myself it was nothing, just a neighbor, just paranoia, until I saw the mark. A thin scratch, right beside my lock, fresh, silver against the paint. Someone had tried to see. If the lock was loose, someone had tested my door, and I knew exactly who. If Evan already suspected there was more, I needed to move fast. I grabbed my backpack and drove straight back to the mountains. My heart pounded as I crawled through the stone gap again. The cave smelled the same, cold and ancient. The metal box was still where I left it. But when I lifted the lid, something was wrong. Some pieces were moved. Not many, not violently, but definitely touched. Someone had been here recently. My chest tightened. That night I left the cave. Someone else must have entered it. But how? The entrance was almost invisible. Unless they had followed me, without me noticing. A shadow in the trees, a distant silhouette, a crunch of gravel behind me. I didn't pay attention to. I felt sick. I shoved the lid closed and stepped back. Suddenly the cave didn't feel like a discovery. It felt like a grave. When I turned to leave, I saw something on the ground, near the entrance. Piece of paper, folded once, placed deliberately. My blood ran cold. I picked it up, with trembling fingers. On the inside, written in rushed, jagged handwriting, "Don't trust him." No name, no signature, just those 3 words. My knees nearly gave out. Who wrote this? Someone else who knew about the cave? Someone who saw me go in? Someone who wanted to warn me or manipulate me? The walls of the cave felt like they were closing in. I shoved the note into my pocket and crawled out into the daylight, breathing like I'd escaped drowning. I didn't know it then, but that note would save my life. I drove home with my head full of mountains and my stomach full of dread. In my apartment, I had the 3 ancient pieces of jewelry, photos of the cave and the box, the note that said, "Don't trust him," and the growing realization that I was in way over my head. That evening, I made one decision. I wasn't selling anything through Evan. I wasn't playing with the black market. And I wasn't hiding centuries-old history in my apartment like some movie thief. I opened my laptop and started searching. How to report an archaeological discovery. Laws about historical artifacts. What happens if you find treasure accidentally? Turns out there were official channels. Real procedures. Ways to report things legally. I reached for my phone to make the call when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy, deliberate. My heart locked up. Someone stopped, right outside my door. Then, a soft scrape, like fingers testing the lock. I didn't breathe, didn't move. After a long minute, the footsteps continued down the hall. In the morning, I found a thin scratch, right beside my lock. Fresh, silver, deliberate. Someone had tried to check if the door would open. And I knew exactly who. Chapter 11, the visit I'd been afraid of. That night, the knock finally came. Calm, polite, too polite. "Who is it?" I asked. "It's Evan. We need to talk." I opened the door only as far as the chain would allow. He looked at me like nothing was wrong. "You didn't come back today," he said. "I thought maybe you found more." My chest tightened. "There isn't more," I said. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "You know," he said quietly, "keeping items like that is illegal. You could get into serious trouble." "I'm handling it." "With who?" he asked sharply. "The police? Museums? They'll take everything. You won't get a cent." I didn't move. "You should bring the rest to me," he continued. "I have buyers. Real ones. People who pay well for items like these." "There is nothing else," I repeated. He stared at me for several seconds, then exhaled through his nose. "So that's how it is," he said. "You're choosing to make this difficult. I'm choosing not to work with you." His jaw twitched. "Be careful," he whispered. "You don't know who else is interested." Then he walked away. I didn't wait. I called the police and reported an attempted break-in. I didn't mention the cave. Not yet. But at least there was now an official record that Evan had tried to force my lock. And that record would matter later. The next day, I got a message from an unknown number. "You returned to the cave. Good. You're lucky you're still alive. Meet me at the cafe next to the gas station. 4 p.m. Sit by the window. Should I have gone? Probably not. Did I? Of course. At the cafe, a woman around 40, with hiking gear and a windbreaker, looked up as I approached. She nodded, recognizing me instantly. "You're the one from the cave," she said. I sat down slowly. "Who are you?" "My name's Lena," she said. "I work with historians and archaeologists. I map old trails, dig sites. I saw you crawl out of that crevice 2 days ago." My skin crawled. "Did you leave the note?" I asked. She nodded. "But not because of the treasure," she said. "I left it because you weren't alone out there." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" She leaned forward. "Someone was watching you. Someone was taking pictures of you from the ridge above the cave." My voice trembled. "Who?" She didn't hesitate. "Your friend, the antique dealer." Cold washed through me. She continued. "He was looking for the entrance before you were. I saw him circling the rock wall. He didn't find it, but when you left the cave, he followed your trail back to your car." I felt sick. Chapter 13, Making the Right Call. Lena explained everything. She had heard rumors of a medieval treasure lost in the mountains centuries ago. Local legends, whispers, nothing concrete, until she saw me crawl out of a hidden gap, with dust and scratches all over me. "You found something real," she said, "and you're not the only one who knows." I swallowed hard. "And what do I do now?" "You report it," she said simply. "Legally, through the right channels." I shook my head. "If I do that, I lose everything." She stared at me. "If you don't do that, you lose more than everything." Then she added, "You lose yourself." That hit differently. We made a plan. Together. The next days felt surreal. I officially filed a report, handed over the 3 pieces, showed the photos, gave them the coordinates, explained the attempted break-in at my apartment, mentioned Evan's involvement. They took it all very seriously. A team was sent to the cave. Lena and I guided them. When they opened the metal box, with proper lighting and equipment, the reaction on their faces was priceless. Shock, awe, confusion. It was real, every piece of it. Within hours, the site was sealed. Guards were stationed. Cataloging began. Conservators were on standby. A museum specialist was called in. I was told, "Thank you for reporting this. Finders like you are rare. You will receive compensation according to the law." I wasn't a millionaire, but I wasn't a criminal either, and that felt like its own kind of wealth. Chapter 15, What Happened to Evan. A few weeks later, I saw the headline online. Local antique dealer investigated for trafficking illegal artifacts. His shop was shut down. The investigation led to unregistered historical items, illegal transactions, communications with foreign buyers, evidence of smuggling attempts. I didn't testify. I didn't need to. The police had his attempt to break into my apartment on record. He had already dug his own grave. His store went vacant. His reputation collapsed. And just like the cave, he disappeared into the dark. Chapter 16, My Reward and My Freedom. Yes, I received compensation. Not millions, not a fairy tale ending, but enough to pay off debt, move into a safer apartment, finally breathe without panic, save some money for the future. I wasn't rich, but I was free. The cave was declared an official historical site. The treasure is now being prepared for a museum exhibition. Sometimes I see clips on the news. Ancient mountain jewelry found in extraordinary condition. Nobody mentions my name. And honestly, I'm grateful for that. So why am I writing this on Reddit? Because sometimes at night, I sit and wonder, what if I kept it all? What if I sold it secretly? What if I took the risk? And then I remember the scratch on my door, the look in Evan's eyes, when he realized he wouldn't get what he wanted. The folded note in the cave. Don't trust him. Lena swears she didn't write it. So who did? Maybe someone else, who followed him before. Maybe another person who suffered for trusting the wrong guy. Maybe someone who almost made the same mistake I nearly made. I'll probably never know, but I do know this. If you ever find something valuable, something big enough to change your life, the real test isn't whether you can hide it. The real test is whether you can live with what happens next. I didn't choose the richest path, or the easiest, or the fastest. I chose the path that let me sleep at night. The treasure in the cave didn't make me wealthy. It made me honest. It taught me not everything you can take actually belongs to you, and not everyone who says, "I can help," has your best interest in mind. Sometimes, the most valuable thing you carry out of a cave isn't gold. It's the lesson